Hey there, it's Louie, and in this part 2 video tutorial, we're going to be learning everything you need to know about how to customize your pet rock with other additions and advanced customizations that you can add to your pet rock to make it your own personal pet. We're going to start by learning how to make little grass patches and embroider on eyebrows, to moving on to sprouts and mushrooms, friends for your pet rocks like little pet frogs and little pet butterflies, and then we'll move on to more advanced techniques like how to add gems and a pipe cleaner pickaxe to your pet rock as well. If you want to quickly jump around in this video tutorial, jump specifically to an advanced technique, use the links in the description down below, and you can use the time codes to quickly jump around in this video tutorial. Also, make sure to like this video down below, subscribe to the channel, and hit the little bell icon so you don't miss it when we come out with new live crochet alongs or patterns like this. By the way, live crochet alongs are a great opportunity for you to get extra help, ask questions if I don't go through enough detail in this video tutorial. Please join and let me know. I'd be happy to help live. All right, well, thank you again so much for supporting this channel. It really means the world to me. If you want to learn more about Club Crochet memberships or other ways you can support, please check out clubcrochet.com. All right, but without further ado, let's get hooking. We're going to start by learning how to make little grass bits for your crochet. Okay, to start off customizing our rock, let's start by adding grass and moss. It's actually the easiest thing, I think, to add a little bit of customization. And here we have 3 examples of different ways you can do this. The first is by just adding little grass patches to it. So I'm going to show you that first, and then we'll talk about how to embroider on some pieces of grass to create things like eyebrows or little features. And then I'll talk shortly about how to add needle felting moss to the top of it, which adds just a little bit of extra flavor too. But let's start by adding grass patches. Now, the first thing you're going to want for grass patches is you want some green yarn. You actually don't need very much green yarn for this method. We're just going to cut a little bit off right there. And the actual way that I do this is I actually like to start by creating a knot with our green yarn. And I'll try to make a bigger knot. So you want to make it pretty big. Let's go with like a double size knot like that. Okay, so you just create a little knot in the end of your yarn just to have something for it to anchor to. So just simply like that. Then we'll thread both of these ends of our yarn onto our needle. Onto just a little darn needle like this. I usually like to bend the edges there and then just kind of wiggle it into my needle until both ends are on the needle. Okay, so we got a knot in the end, we got it on the needle. Now we want to choose where we want the grass patch. I usually like to put it inside of an actual bobble stitch because I think it's kind of cute that way. But let's actually make it just somewhere random. So let's just choose like right here is where we want the grass patch. You want to start by coming in through an adjacent stitch to that. So something like right here. Okay, you want to start by coming in through between 2 different stitches. So we're going to go between these 2 different stitches here. And we're going to come out through the center of a stitch. So let's go in the center of this stitch. Now notice how I'm coming out of the actual center of the stitch itself. This would be in between 2 stitches where this right here is the center of the stitch. Come out of the center of a stitch. That'll mean that your knot will have somewhere to lock onto. Once you come out of the center of the stitch, pull the yarn through till you just have the end out and the knot is just barely poking in like that. Let's get all the yarn through. Take your needle off now. And now we want to pull it just enough so that this knot gets pulled in, but it gets stuck right there. See how it kind of like gets stuck on the inside there? Now it won't come out. So what we want to do is then cut your yarn to whatever length you want it to be. Usually when I'm making grass patches, I want a pretty short end. So maybe like right like that. Pretty short. And then I also usually like to kind of tweak the ends of my yarn to kind of split it up into different little edges. I'm using our Club Crochet cotton yarn, which has a bunch of little frayed ends when you cut it. So that's pretty good. And that's how to add a very simple, just a little grass patch to your piece. You can repeat that as much as you want to add as many little grass patches as you want. It's a great way to add some really simple customizations to your rock. It'd be really cute to add a little crack using embroidery with gray yarn, but let's show you how to embroider with green yarn to add things like eyebrows or facial features too. To do that, we're just gonna need a little bit more of our green yarn. And obviously you can use your forest green, you can use your sage green, whatever you want to. You can use weird colors if you want to add some like emeralds in embroidery. We'll thread it onto our needle. We want to go in through an adjacent stitch. Let's put, in this case, let's say we want to make, let's do our unibrow I probably won't keep it, but it's a great way to just show you how to do a unibrow. So the unibrow, I want to come out from here and go all the way across and exit into here. So what I'm going to do is come in through an adjacent stitch, probably like right here, somewhere close to it. And we're going to come out where we want the start of the unibrow to be. Have this long enough of an end. You just want a little bit end there. And you want to have it go all the way across for your unibrow as far as you want, or eyebrow. You know what? Let's do an eyebrow. It'll be a little easier. So I'll just do a few stitches over. 1, 2, 3. Let's do it right up to here. And we're going to come out through the same stitch as we started, just like that. And you could just simply instead double knot, and then that's perfectly reasonable for an eyebrow, right? But if we want to add a little bit more depth to this eyebrow, what we can do is after we've come out, we can go around the actual embroidery right here and just go around it as many times as you want, and this will add thickness and texture to your embroidery. So you just keep doing this and see how it's just adding like this little bit of texture to the embroidery. I find this makes it look much more like grass or like moss of some kind, and just makes it look a little bit cleaner. Okay. So something like that looks pretty good. Yeah, that looks pretty great. So I just ran around it like 5 times, pretty easy. I'll go back into the same stitch as we entered and then exit through the same stitch as our tail end here, like this. Boom. And now we have this cute little eyebrow that was really simple to add. So I'll go ahead and I'll add another eyebrow to this end, and then I'll show you how to do some moss. Oh, I'm sorry. The last part about embroidering, you want to double knot this. So just double knot this on the inside. You don't need to pull it too tight. That's probably fine. And you can cut the end nice and short. You could use this as an extra grass patch if you want to like kind of save time. But I don't really want a grass patch on the bottom of him, although that would look kind of funny, like little sideburns or something. So I'm going to take the bottom of my crochet or my needle here and just stuff that end back into the piece like that. All right, so I'll go ahead and add another eyebrow over here in a very similar manner, and then I'll be back and show you how to do some needle felting as well. Okay, so we've added our 2 little eyebrows here. We got a little grass patch. Now, to add moss, this is like kind of an advanced technique, but I often like to add moss to the top of my piece by using needle felting. Now, if you bought the seasonal kit, this actually is not included in the seasonal kit because I didn't want to ship it out with needles and felt and stuff. But what you want to do if you want to add needle felting is you want to either have loose wool felt like this or cut felt. You can use just like regular patches of like flat felt, kind of like this, you know, like normal felt. And what you would do, obviously I would choose green if I were using this felt, but what you would do is you'd cut out the shapes of how you want your moss. And then simply all you really need to do to needle felt is place the felt on your piece, wherever you want it. Okay, let's just use a little bit of this felt here. You place your felt wherever you want it on your piece, and you use a needle felting tool like this. And all you need to do is just simply poke it straight into the body. And the more you poke it, the more felt gets added to the piece itself. So it's a pretty cool technique to add just like some simple moss additions to your rock really easily. If you want a more in-depth tutorial for adding moss using needle felting, try this video right up here. That'll go into details for how to use needle felting to add faces to jack-o'-lanterns, and it's the exact same technique as this one. Okay, so that's adding felt and moss. Let's move on now to making actual pieces for your rock. To make a mini butterfly, all you'll need is some yarn in whatever color you want your butterfly and some black yarn. To start, we're going to start with a magic loop with our main color here, just like so. And we're going to start by actually chaining 1 additional chain after you've done the magic loop. So I've gotten the magic loop started. Now I've already gone through the magic loop in our main rock tutorial, but if you want a detailed tutorial on magic loops, check the link right up here. After you've made your magic loop, we want to chain 1 additional time, so it's a little bit longer of a chain. We're then going to do the following stitches into the magic loop. All of the stitches from our entire butterfly are all in this magic loop. We're going to start by half double crocheting 2 times. For half double crochet, we yarn over and then go into the magic loop yarn over again and pull a loop under, and you should have 3 loops on the hook. We'll then yarn over again and pull through all 3 loops on the hook. 1, 2, and 3. We want to do that 2 times. So there's our first half double crochet. Let's do another one. We yarn over into the same stitch, aka the magic loop, yarn over and pull through, then yarn over and pull through 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we did 2 half double crochets. Next, we're going to do a double crochet. For a double crochet, we yarn over, we go into the same stitch right here, yarn over and pull a loop through. Then yarn over, and this time we're only going to pull through 2 loops on the hook. So 1 and 2, like that. Then we'll yarn over again and pull through the last 2 loops on the hook. 1 and 2. This is going to be a slightly taller crochet stitch. Great for the top of our butterfly wings. Next, we're going to chain 1. Just 1 chain. So we yarn over and we'll pull it through the loop to create a chain. And then we're going to slip stitch 1. For a slip stitch, we're going to go into the magic loop, place our crochet hook in there, yarn over, pull that through the stitch and then through the loop on the hook, like so. And that's going to make it kind of like poke down, straight down, and create a wing of our butterfly. So this is going to be one of our butterfly's wings. Okay, so now for the second half of the butterfly, we're going to start by chaining 2. So yarn over, pull through, yarn over again, and pull through. Next, we're going to do a double crochet into the magic loop. So we yarn over, go into the magic loop, pull through, yarn over, and pull through just 2 of the loops, 1 and 2. Then yarn over again and pull through the last 2, 1 and 2. Now we're going to do 2 half double crochets. So just basically we're doing what we did in the start, but backwards. So we yarn over, into the stitch, yarn over and pull through, then yarn over and pull through all 3 for a half double crochet, 1, 2, and 3. And then one more of those, half double crochet, pull through, 1, 2, and 3. Finally, we will chain 1 and slip stitch 1 into the magic loop. So go into the center, yarn over, pull a loop through, and through the loop on the hook. Okay, the last thing we want to do is we can cut the yarn. You do not need a very long end for this. That's probably just fine. Pull it all the way through, and then go straight down back through the center with that same end. So just back down through the center. Once that's through the center, you can take the end attaching to the magic loop to close the magic loop completely. And you just want to pull it really tight and pull that other end in so that it creates this kind of 2 ends there. So those are going to be the wings of our mini butterfly. Okay, now before we continue on to do the center of our mini butterfly, we do want to try to hide these ends as best as possible. So we're going to thread these on a needle, and into the back of our stitches, we're just going to go into a few stitches here. 1, like this, 1, 2, 3, and we're just kind of working our crochet hook into the back of a few stitches, and this is just going to help make sure that nothing comes undone. We'll thread this onto our needle, like so, and just pull it into the back of the stitches. This will help hide it and keep everything in place. And we're going to do the same on this opposite side, but going down. So we're going to go into the back of a few stitches here. 1, 2, 3. That's probably fine. Thread this on our needle, like that. And then pull that straight down on the inside as well. Okay, so that's going to hide those 2 tail ends on the inside. So now we can cut these close. 1 and 2. Okay, so now we have the body of our butterfly, and we just need to add the center part. So for the center part, you'll just need a little bit of black yarn. You actually won't need too much, so we'll go ahead and cut that pretty short there. And we're going to make a slip knot with this. So we're going to make a little loop in the end, fold that loop over itself like this to make kind of like a little pretzel looking thing, and then pull the inside of the pretzel through the hole like that. This is going to create a little knot that you can pull one end and it'll shrink the knot, but if you pull the other end, it won't do anything. We want to create this, take this loop, place it around the outside of your butterfly into the 2 little divots, and then tighten it, this side, tighten it nice and tight, like pretty tight. Just really make sure that this knot is at the top of wherever you want your butterfly. So that'll be like right here. And we're just going to pull this nice and tight. And then what we want to do is just double knot these two. Actually, you don't even need to double knot it. Just one knot should probably suffice. So we'll just pull it nice and tight there to make sure everything gets pulled in. And then we're just going to knot this one time like this. And that should keep it so that it doesn't come undone. The last thing you want to do is just cut these long enough that you want for your little stem, or not your stem, your what are those called on a butterfly? You know, the little antennae, that's the word. So you want them as long as you want the antennae. And if you want to make sure that they don't fray, put a little bit of glue on the end, or honestly, just use a little, just like a little saliva, honestly works pretty well too. Just like that, just a little bit. And it'll keep everything a little bit more secure. And that's how to make a mini butterfly. Look at how cute that is. Great addition to our guy. Now you can sew this on. I usually actually don't even sew them on. I'll either pin them on or just place it right on top and let it sit there if it's on my desk. Okay, so that's a mini butterfly. We'll put that to the side. And then the next thing we want to do is let's make a mini frog. For a Minigurumi Frog, we're going to be using our green yarn here. Now, I will say this is a more advanced crochet pattern just because it's so tiny. We're basically making this little itsy bitsy frog using only a few stitches. Now, this is a technique that I call Minigurumis, which are patterns that are less than 100 stitches with no sewing at all. I actually have a pretty decent amount of these now, and I really like these patterns. They're really fun to make. And this pattern actually is going to use all the techniques that we've learned in our main rock, but just in hyper detail and very small. So every stitch of this pattern here is going to be very important. We're going to start by using our green yarn and making a magic loop. So the same way as we started with all the rest, just making a simple magic loop in green. Okay, round one of our Minigurumi Frog is going to be very similar to the start of our rock. That's going to be to single crochet 6 times into the magic loop. So we're just going to take our crochet hook and start by doing 6 single crochets into the magic loop. Pretty easy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Let me pull this nice and tight. Now I'm not going to use a stitch marker here only because it is so tiny that it's actually really hard to use a stitch marker in this part. So round 2, we're going to try working around this tail end throughout this entire round of round 2. And round 2 is going to be the following stitches. We're going to be doing bumps. Now, if you remember from the rock video, don't worry, I'm going to show you how a bump works. But if you remember in the rock video, we made a bump right here. So it's basically like a super mini bobble with just 2 steps. So that's the first thing you want to know. We're going to make bumps using white yarn to create where the eyes are specifically. We're also going to be doing increases in this round as well. So we're going to start by doing an increase into the very first stitch right here. So we're going to find our first stitch, wiggle our crochet hook into that first stitch, and we're going to do an increase, meaning 2 single crochets into that same stitch. We also want to place our tail end from the very beginning over our crochet hook throughout this entire round. So we're going to start by doing an increase. And don't finish up the second single crochet of your increase just yet. Don't pull through because we want our white yarn now. So we did our increase, we started an increase, but we didn't finish the second single crochet. Now we want to grab our white yarn and just place it in between the 2 loops on the hook and the end attached to the ball like that. And then finish up our crochet stitch so that this white yarn is locked into place like that. Okay, so there's our first increase. Now we want to make our eye and a single crochet into the next stitch. So we're going to make both a single crochet and a bump using our white yarn. We're going to start with a single crochet. We're going to keep using our green yarn, go into the next stitch right here, and we're going to just use our single crochet. We're going to crochet around both this green tail end and our white yarn here, and just do 1 simple single crochet pulling through with green. Now into that same exact stitch, we want to make a bump using white yarn. To make a bump, we're going to yarn over and then go. So both of these green yarns, by the way, I'm just holding off to the side. We don't need to pay attention to them. We're going to take our yarn over, go into the same stitch that we just worked into. That's going to be right here. And we're going to place our crochet hook into that same stitch, yarn over again, pull that through the stitch. You should have 2 loops on the hook now. yarn over, and pull through those 2 white loops. 1 and 2, like that. We're going to repeat that same process one more time into the same stitch. So we'll yarn over, go into the same stitch right here, yarn over again, and pull that through the loop, and then yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops on the hook, just the first 2. So there's 1, and then in the same stitch right here is 2, like that. Okay, so that's the basis of our bump. Now we want to change back over to green. Don't use our tail end here, but use the end attached to the ball. And we're going to yarn over with the end attached to the ball, ignore that other tail end, and just pull it through all 3 loops on the hook. 1, 2, and 3, like that. And then I always kind of pull my white stitches a little tighter now. Okay, so there's going to be our first placement for our eye. You could make this in green, by the way, if you want to make it a little simpler. Just make a bump using green yarn instead. Okay, now we're going to do 2 increases before we get started on our next eye. Let's pull this a little tighter, by the way. Okay, so in the next stitch, which is going to be right after where the bump is, so right here, we just want to do an increase stitch. And I'm going to work around our tail ends of... actually, we'll work around both these tail ends here as we do our increase. We pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, 1 and 2. We're going to do that again in the same stitch because we want it to be an increase. So into that same exact stitch right here, do another single crochet like that. Now into the next stitch over after that one right here, we're going to do another increase the same exact way. So we're going to go into that next stitch right here. Make sure you're under both of those loops with the tail ends on top and do 2 single crochets. So there's 1, and then in the same stitch right here will be 2, 1 and 2. Okay, so that gets started on our next one. Now into the next stitch, after doing our 2 increases, we want to do another bump and single crochet, but this time we want to do it the other way around. Last time we did a single crochet first and then a bump. This time we're going to do a bump and then a single crochet all in the same stitch. And the bump, of course, we want it to be white. So let's start by making our bump. We're going to yarn over with our white yarn and go into the next stitch, which is going to be right here. Make sure you have both of our green tail ends on top of that and pull through. Then yarn over and pull through 2, 1 and 2. So it's the exact same technique as before. We're going to do that one more time. Yarn over into the same exact stitch right here. Yarn over and pull through. Then yarn over and pull through 2, just 2, 1 and 2. All right, should have 3 loops on the hook. Now we're going to change back over to our green. So we're going to take the green that's attached to the ball, flip it under, yarn over with our green, and pull through all 3 loops with our green yarn. Okay, now we want to do another single crochet into that same exact stitch, but all in green. So we want to find that same stitch just where all that white is, yarn over, pull through with green, yarn over again, and pull through 1, 2 with green, just like that. Okay, now we're done with our white yarn actually, so we can cut it pretty close. That's probably fine. I'll go ahead and cut our other tail end too, just to keep it there. And we'll cut the other green tail end also because we don't need that one as well. Okay, to finish up round 2, all we need to do is do 1 more increase into the next stitch right here, all in green. So that's 2 single crochets in the same stitch, all in green. So there's 1 and 2, just like that. Okay, it's going to be all green from here on, so we don't need to worry about doing color changes. And for the next 2 rounds, that's rounds 3 and 4, we just want to do a single crochet into every single stitch around. There should be 12 stitches around, by the way, so if you want to count your stitches, do 12 single crochets, 1 per stitch all the way around. And don't worry right now about your eyes. We're going to get to those a little bit later after we make our feet after these 2 rounds of single crochets. So we're just continually doing single crochets all the way around, 12 stitches per round for 2 rounds. Okay, so that's one of our 2 rounds. That's the end of round 3. We'll do 1 more now. And hey, if you haven't yet, please consider liking this video down below, subscribing to the YouTube channel, and hitting that little bell icon. That'll get you notified whenever we do live crochet alongs or I come out with a new video tutorial. I do live crochet alongs every single week, and they're really fun. You should really consider joining them. We make some weird stuff depending on what the chat wants to make, and it's a great opportunity to ask questions, get advice, get help, or just share your crochet, hang out with some like-minded crocheters, and just, you know, have a nice day. Okay, so this is going to be the end of round 4. There we go. So now you can see we've added a little bit of height to our little tiny frog, and we got our 2 placements of eyes, which we're going to get to in a little bit. Next up, we want to make round 5, and round 5 we're going to be making our feet. We're going to be using feet by making bumps and mini bobble stitches, both of which were explained in my tutorial for the rock, but I will go through a quick tutorial for those 2 stitches as well in this round. So let's start by doing 3 single crochets to get to our first leg. We're going to start by doing 3 single crochets. So we got 1, 2, and 3 single crochets. All right, now we want to add our first leg. And actually for this leg, we're going to do a mini bobble stitch, but instead of working into the next stitch right here, we're going to work into the stitch above it right here. And that's going to make our back legs a little bit higher than our front legs, which is going to be really nice to make it look more like a frog. So we're going to start by doing a mini bobble stitch into that stitch above. To do a mini bobble, it's basically our little bumps, but with 1 extra step. So it's the same 2 steps, but you want to do 1 more. And we're going to do this in green. So we're going to start by yarning over, going into the stitch. Don't forget, we don't want to go into this stitch. We want to go into the stitch above it right here. Then yarn over and pull a loop through. Yarn over and pull through, whoops, there we go, and pull through 2 of the loops on the hook, 1 and 2. All right, so that's the first part. We're going to do that same thing 3 times. So that's our first time. Let's do a second repeat. Yarn over into the stitch. Don't forget, we're going to just follow where this long V is right here to find that stitch. Yarn over and pull it through. Then yarn over and pull through 2, 1, and 2. Okay, so there's 2 loops. Let's do 1 more. Yarn over into the same stitch as all those ones are going into, all the way down here. Yarn over and pull that through. Then yarn over and pull through just 2, 1 and 2, like that. Now we can finish up our mini bobble stitch by yarning over and pulling through all 4 loops on the hook like so. That's going to create our first leg. That's going to be our first back leg. All right, after doing that back leg, we want to do a single crochet. Our next stitch is going to be right here, right after where the mini bobble is. We want to work into the top of the loop now, not into the bottom part. So we're just going to do a single crochet into that stitch right here. Nice and easy. 1 and 2. And now we're going to do a bump, the same thing as we did with these eyes, but in green, into the next stitch. You don't need to work into the stitch above. You can just work into the regular next stitch. And it's really simple. Yarn over, into the stitch, yarn over and pull through, yarn over, pull through 2. 1, 2. And just do that again. Yarn over, into the stitch, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2. 1, 2. So it's the same thing, but it's all green. Then we can yarn over and pull through all loops on the hook to finish that bump. And that's going to be our first front leg. We're going to do 1 more single crochet after that bump right here. And then we're going to do another bump. So I'll do it a little quicker now. There's 1 and 2. Boom. There we go. So there's our third leg. We're going to do another single crochet after that third leg right here. And then we want 1 more mini bobble in this. Remember how we went above into the next round up. So we're going to go up right here and do another mini bobble stitch for our last leg. So mini bobble again was yarn over into the stitch, yarn over, pull through, yarn over and pull through 2. And then we do that same process 3 times total. So this is our second repeat and then our third repeat. You can see I've been doing this for a long time. I can do them really quick now. Yarn over and pull through all the loops on the hook to finish that back leg. And we're going to finish this round up by doing a single crochet into the last 2 stitches. So 1 single crochet per stitch. There's 1 and 2, just like that. We're going to pull our yarn out a little bit here, and we're going to add our face before we do our last round. So the first thing I like to do when we add our face is just do a very simple mouth. I usually like to make the mouth just straight. To do a mouth, I just go from, you can do it above up here, or you can do it down here. I actually just do these 2 stitches right here, and I'll come out through one with our black yarn, threaded onto our needle. I usually just like to do just a simple line for a frog's mouth. Okay, so we just come up through 1 stitch here, go across 1, 2 stitches, and then back down into the body. There you go, easy. And then we just double knot those on the inside to make sure that stays in place. 1, and you could do a little smile if you wanted to. You want to get a little extra, but I find that, especially for a frog, just a straight line works completely fine. There we go. We'll just double knot that. There we go. And let's cut these 2 ends nice and short, like that. Okay, the last thing you want to do for your frog before we do our last round is going to be adding the eyes. The eyes are going to be added very similar to the eyes of our rock, but this time we want to use just smaller eyes. We're going to be using 6mm eyes today. These are my bottle of eyes, by the way. I have these available in the shop if you'd like to purchase one to support. We're running low, but I might restock, I don't know. I really love these things though. Okay, so for the eyes, I'm just gonna take this. We can do the same kind of method where we take our crochet hook, and you kind of have a few different placements here. You can make your eyes cross-eyed or outwards or whatever. The last time I did it, I did them inwards, so they were looking forward, but I think I'm gonna do it the other way around so it looks a little like really goofy. So we're gonna go into this side of the eye right here, and just go in between 2 parts so that there's a little bit of white on the outside. And use your crochet hook to create a gap like that, and it'll create this little hole. We'll then take one of our eyes and go straight into that hole and just wiggle our way in there. That might be a little farther than we were wanting. Let's see. I'm also going to stuff that little edge into the yarn too. Let's see if we did another one right over here. I mean, it's actually, you know what? It's not bad. It's just a little further than we wanted. And let's do it. Let's just move it over a little bit more. So we're going to undo that, wiggle our way out like that. And this time we're going to do it 1 over. So we're going to go right here instead into this part of the round. See, so it's just a little bit over. It'll be looking a little bit more straight ahead now. So into this part, just wiggle our way in there. You can always do this lower or higher too. That's pretty good. I like that. And let's do the same thing on the other side. So it's going to be right in the center then, essentially. Right here. Create a little gap with your needle. Wiggle your way in there. And then use your needle, your eye. Place it right where that needle was, and then just wiggle your way into the piece. If you're having a difficult time, look it on the inside, and you can see sometimes it's because of this. You're kind of splitting the yarn instead. So if you want it to make sure that doesn't happen, use your needle and make sure it goes all the way on one side of this instead of splitting 2 threads of yarn. There we go. So there's one eye in there. Let's go ahead and lock this eye in place. Boom. And then we'll do the same on the other eye. Lock it into place. Boom. Okay, now we got these cute little goofy looking eyes. Oh my gosh, this guy's looking adorable. All right, let's finish our frog up. To finish the frog up, we're going to start by decreasing in each stitch around. Now, this time when I decrease, I'm going to do something called a sharp decrease, which is going to be just slightly different than an invisible decrease. You, of course, could use an invisible decrease, which is what we did for the bottom of our rock, but I actually find a sharp decrease, which is a different kind of decrease, makes it really flat on the bottom and makes it sit upright a little bit better. So to do a sharp decrease, we're going to go into the next stitch, which is going to be right here. And we're going to yarn over and pull through like as if we were doing a single crochet. Then we're going to go into the next stitch. That's going to be right here. Yarn over again and pull a second loop through the crochet. So right there. So now we have 3 loops on the hook. Using that first loop, we want to go under second 2. So we're going to pull that first loop under 1 and 2 like that. And that's going to be called a sharp decrease. It's a very noticeable decrease, but if it's on the bottom of your stitches, it does not really matter, and it makes your piece look really flat and sit upright. So we're going to do that 6 times in a row. So there's our first one. Let's do our second one into this stitch, yarn over, pull it through. Then into the next stitch right here, yarn over again, pull a second loop through, and pull that second loop through the first 2. All right, so there's 2 decreases. I'll go a little quicker now. There's our third decrease. And as we get smaller, it's going to become a little bit more difficult. You want to be very careful when you get to those bobble stitches to make sure you go through the top of the stitch and not through the side. So if you look at the top here, you can see these 2 V's. You want to make sure you're under both of those V's instead of just under one of those loops. Okay, and then we'll do one last one right here. 1 and 2, and pull through them both like that. Okay, finish this up by cutting the yarn. You don't need a very long end. That's probably fine. And we're just going to pull it all the way through. And then we want to stuff our little froggy up a little bit. You don't need very much stuffing for this part. These little frogs are so tiny that you actually don't need very much. I honestly mostly use extra yarn, like spare yarn from pieces, to stuff our frogs up, just because it's like readily available. But I've got my stuffing right here anyhow, so might as well use it. Okay, you don't need to stuff these up very much at all, but the last part that I always like to do before I sew it closed, well, not always, but I often like to put little magnets in the bottom to make it so that it can magnetically attach to the top of our rock. If you remember when we were sewing this closed, we actually put a little magnet in the top here so that we could do this. So we're going to take 2 magnets, and we're going to take these 2 magnets and then place it right on the top so that we know the polarity of the magnets. We want it right there, and it's going to go 2 magnets upright like that. So we're going to go like that. So take these 2 magnets, do not flip them around, and place it right in the bottom of your frog. And now we want to just sew this closed. And we're going to sew it closed in the exact same way as we sewed the bottom of our rock closed. So we're going to thread this onto our needle, and we're just going to take this end and just go through the front loops only of all the loops around. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then one more right here will be 6. We're going to take that, pull it nice and tight to close up the bottom, like that. Go back down through the center and out through pretty much anywhere you want on the side. And we'll pull it pretty tight. And that's going to close up the bottom and make it really flat so it sits upright. We can cut the yarn nice and short, like so. And now we have a little frog that magnetically attaches, oops, there we go, magnetically attaches to the top of our rock. I probably could have added one more magnet in there to make it really more secure. I didn't really think it was not going to be as secure. There we go. It's sitting upright pretty well. That's pretty good. It's just our rock doesn't want to sit upright. There we go. Look at that. Oh, well. Okay, we'll place that to the side, and let's continue on and make a little mini mushroom. Okay, for our mini mushroom, we're going to be using another color of yarn. We're going to be using our beige or jute yarn for this, and you'll need a pipe cleaner. You don't need the pipe cleaner to be the same color, but it does kind of help a little bit, but you don't really need it that way. So we're just going to place the pipe cleaner to the side right now, and we're going to start by making the cap of our mushroom. The cap of our mushroom is actually pretty easy to make. We're just going to start by creating a magic loop, and you want a relatively long tail end too, so keep a long tail end like that before you make your magic loop. And get started here. And the start of our mushroom is going to be very similar to the start of all of our other pieces, which is going to be the single crochet 6 times into the magic loop for round 1. So a nice simple beginning of just single crocheting 6 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, like that. We're going to pull this tail end nice and tight, and that'll be the end of round 1. For round 2, we're going to single crochet 2 times, and then working into the front loops only, meaning the loops closest to you, we're going to increase once. And then we're going to repeat that one more time to get around to the end. I'm not going to use a stitch marker today. Instead, I'm just going to work around our tail end here. And we're going to start by doing a single crochet into the first 2 stitches. The first one's always really tough. So you want to place your crochet hook in position and wiggle your way in to just get into that first stitch. Then we're going to do a single crochet into the first one. Notice how I'm working. Oh, actually, you know what? You don't need to work around the tail end for this. Keep the tail end short. We're going to go right down. There we go. All right, so there's 1 single crochet in the first, and then a single crochet in the next right here. 2 single crochets. So 2 single crochets in a row. After doing those 2 single crochets, we're going to work only in the front of our loops, so only right here, and we're going to do an increase stitch, meaning 2 single crochets into that same front loop only. Take your crochet hook under only the front loop, like that, and do an increase. So 2 in the same stitch. There's 1, and the same stitch is 2. All right, we're going to repeat that same process one more time. So do that whole repeat again. 2 single crochets. Our single crochets are worked into both loops. There's 1 and 2 single crochets. And then working only in that front of the loop right here, we want to do another increase. So there's 1 and 2. All right, and that's going to be the end of round 2 for our mushroom cap. For round 3, we're going to work into both loops for this entire round. And round 3 is going to be 1 single crochet and then 1 increase, and then 3 single crochets and then 1 increase, and then 2 single crochets to finish the round. So we'll start by doing 1 single crochet into the first. Don't forget, you're working under both loops for this round. So there's 1 single crochet, and then an increase after that. So right here is going to be our first increase. So 2 in the same stitch. There's 1 and 2. And then 3 single crochets. 1, 2, and 3. And then another increase right here. 1 and 2. And then 2 more single crochets to finish this round up. 1 and 2. Okay, to finish up the cap of our mushroom, we're going to do 1 more single crochet here. And then we're going to slip stitch 1 into the next stitch. For slip stitch, we go into the next stitch, yarn over, pull through the stitch, and then through the loop on the hook. And it'll create this little simple end. We're going to want a pretty long amount of yarn, about that long is probably good, and cut the yarn there. We're also then going to pull this out all the way through like that. And we're going to take this end, thread it onto our needle, and we're going to start by creating a hidden end. For a hidden end, we're going to go into the back of the next stitch. So just like this, so into the back of it like that, under both of those loops, pull it through. And then where this end is coming out of, we want to go back into. So where this end's coming out, go into that, and then into the back of a few stitches right here. I usually like to just start with 1. Once I get into that, I pull this end a little tighter, and then go pull through, pull that a little tighter too. All right, now what we can do, I'm going to fold this inside out like this, and we're going to take this end and go into the back of some of these stitches, just a few of them, working our way all the way to the top. I actually realized I didn't really need to cut this end as long, but that's okay. It's not going to hurt. Made a little knot there, so let's fix that. There we go. And then finish up by taking this end, going straight through the top of your piece like this. All the way through the top like that. Okay. And keep this unfolded like this, so it's inside out. So this is the right way like this. This is the way we've been working, but this time we want to unroll it like this so that it's inside out. Okay, next thing we want to do is we want to grab our pipe cleaner. You want to cut the pipe cleaner in half. So we're going to fold it in half like this and then cut that in half. Be careful with your scissors. This could hurt your scissors pretty bad. All right, then we want to take this pipe cleaner and we want to use the end here and we want to put it through the front loops only, the unused front loops only from that round above. So those are kind of hard to see from this end, but you can kind of see this one right here is a little bit out further, and same as this one over here on this side. So those are those two unused back loops only. I'm sorry, I called them front loops, but they're unused back loops only. We want to take our needle, go under those front unused back loops only, under both of them simultaneously like this. We want to get our pipe cleaner into those two front loops only. So the easiest way to do that is either to just like follow, you can follow the needle as you pull it through. That kind of makes it a little easier like that. You can also use a crochet hook. That also works. Once it's in there, we want to fold this in half like that. And then we just want to twist this up all the way. So just twist the pipe cleaner itself all the way up. And this is going to create the base of our stem. We want to keep it all the way twisted up so that there's a nice pointy end at the end for us to stick it into the body of our rock. Twist it up. That might be long enough, but it's okay. We'll just twist it all the way. Okay. All right, the last thing we want to do is we want to cover this as much as possible in yarn. So to do that, we're going to use this tail end from the very beginning, and we're just going to start twisting around our piece, trying to cover it as much as possible on our way down. But don't worry, we're going to go back up our piece too. So I usually like to just like hold in place and kind of twist my way up and try to cover as much of the pipe cleaner as you can with yarn. But don't worry too much. You're going to have another opportunity as you work back up our piece too. This is where you want to choose however tall you want your mushroom. I think that's probably pretty good. I usually like to leave at least like an inch or so untwisted at the bottom. And then where you want the bottom, you want to go around a few extra times, just around the bottom, and then start working your way back up the pipe cleaner like that. So that's going to create this nice little bottom of our stem where it's a little bit thicker. And then you work back up as much as possible, running low on yarn. So I should have made this a little bit longer probably, but that's okay. Okay, oop, lost a little bit there. Okay. Now we have just a little bit of extra yarn. So what we want to do at this end is go straight through the top so that it's coming out where this other tail end is. We're going to double knot it to the other tail end too. Let's go around again. There we go. We're going to thread this onto our needle. Don't worry about the top being a little untwisted. That's really not a big deal because it's going to be covered up by the cap anyhow. We're just going to pull it. Oopsies. Let's try that again. Thread that on our needle. And we're going to go straight through that top like that. Spread those out a little bit. And then I'm going to untuck the cap here. So we're going to untuck this cap like this. And double knot these two tail ends together at the very top. One, you can double knot it relatively tight actually. And there's two. We're going to cut this knot nice and close. Like that. And then we're going to try to stuff this knot back into the piece using the end of our scissors. If you can't use the end of your scissors, try using your needle, but I actually find that the end of scissors usually works pretty well. There we go. And that'll just hide that knot back into the top. And then now we have a super cute little tiny mushroom. Look at that. Super easy. To add this mushroom into your rock itself, all you need to do is find a stitch, really just any stitch right here. And then I just kind of like twist it into the rock itself until that base is right there. And then what's great is because it's on a pipe cleaner, we can bend this so that it sits up straight. Let's fix the top of it a little bit. And then there we go. We have a little tiny mushroom added to our rock. Nice and easy, itsy bitsy mushroom. So we got a mushroom, we got our frog, we've got even a little tiny butterfly. Honestly, already we've got a lot of customizations added to our rock. All right, let's go ahead and remove this. This is another great thing. You can remove it relatively easy. You might end up with a little bit of stuffing like that. If that happens, all you really need to do is stuff it back into your piece using either like you can use your crochet hook, you can use a little chopstick like I'm using here, and then just squish it, maybe get rid of a little bit of that fuzz, and it should hide pretty well. Okay, so now we've got our mushroom, we've got our butterfly, we've got our frog. Let's move on and make our little sprout. To make a sprout, it's going to be a little similar to how we made the base of this of our mushroom here. We'll place it to the side. We're going to start by creating the leaves themselves by crocheting them. So we're going to start with our green yarn. You're going to need your green yarn, and you're going to need a little bit of a pipe cleaner. Honestly, the other half of the pipe cleaner, if you made a mushroom, will work perfectly well for a sprout. Okay, so we're going to start by creating a long end here, and we're going to make a slip knot. We're not going to make a magic loop. Instead, we're just going to make a slip knot. You want to leave a pretty long end, about like that long is probably fine. We're going to need this for going around the end, so that's probably fine. And we're going to create a little slip knot by creating a loop, folding that loop over the long end, attach the ball, and pulling that long end through the loop to create a slip knot. We'll take our crochet hook, place it into the middle of that slip knot, and pull it tight. All right, we're going to start by chaining 5. So yarn over and pull through the loop. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. All right, now we're going to start by working into the back of these chains. So if you look at the top of the chains, there's actually 3 different parts to put into the chain. You have the top of the chain, which is going to be right here. You have the bottom of the chain, which is going to be back here. And then you have the back of the chain, which is actually along the back side. So if you flip it around right here, you'll see these little spines. Those are the back of the chains. So for this first part of this pattern, we're going to work into the back of the chains. And we're going to start by skipping 2 of them. So we're going to skip this one, and we're going to skip this one. Then we're going to get our crochet hook into the 3rd chain from the hook right here. Into that 3rd chain from the hook, we're going to do a half double crochet, and then we'll do another half double crochet into the next one, and then into the 3rd one right here, we're going to just do a single crochet. So let's start with the half double. We yarn over, we'll skip 2 of those chains, 1, 2, into the back of that 3rd chain right here. We're going to get our crochet hook. It can be hard to get your crochet hook into that back chain. I like to use my nail to help guide my crochet hook into that chain like that. Once we're into that back chain, we've yarned over, put our crochet hook in there, yarn over again, pull through the chain, then yarn over again, and pull through all 3 loops. 1, 2, and 3. All right, there's our first half double crochet. We want another half double crochet into the next stitch. So we yarn over, we go into the next stitch right here, and then do another half double crochet into that back loop. 1, 2, 3. All right, into our last chain right here, we want to do 1 single crochet. Again, back loop, use your nail to guide your crochet hook in there. And there we go. Okay, so that's the first half of the leaf. Now we want to make something called a mini picot before we turn it 180 degrees and create the second half of our leaf. For the mini picot, we chain 2. We yarn over, there's 1, yarn over, 2. Into the back loop of the 2nd chain from the hook, we're going to slip stitch 1. So we're going to skip that first chain and then into that back loop. Remember how there was that little bump on the back. So turn it a little bit. You can find that back loop, get your crochet hook into that back loop. Then we're going to do a slip stitch. We'll yarn over, pull through that back loop, and then through the loop on the hook to create a little point. And that's called a mini picot. Okay, so that's going to be the whole first half now. Now we've actually already kind of turned it 180 degrees, which is really nice. But for the next part of this round, we're going to work into the, if we worked into those back loops, we're going to be working into the bottom loops, which are actually going to be, they look kind of like the top when you turn it 180. So right here, we're going to work into this part of the chains. And then into those chains, we're going to work a single crochet in the first, a half double crochet in the second, and then a half double crochet in the third. And then we're going to do a little ending piece to just keep it closed. All right, so we're going to start by doing a single crochet. So we're going to go into this first chain right here, get our crochet hook into just the top part of that. We're going to place our tail end over our crochet hook as well to work around it as we work our stitches. Then yarn over, pull through the chain, yarn over, and pull through 2. 1 and 2. And that's going to be the single crochet. Then we want a half double crochet, so we yarn over. We'll go into the next chain. Don't forget, you only want to work into the top of the chain right here, if you can. There we go. And we're going to do a half double crochet into that one. Don't forget, you want to keep this tail end above it. And we'll do our first half double. Okay, last one, we want to do one more half double crochet into that last stitch right there. So we yarn over, go into that last stitch, yarn over, pull through, then yarn over, 1, 2, 3. And you can see how this is making this little tiny leaf. The last thing we want to do, we'll place this tail end off to the side, is we want to chain 2, 1 and 2. And then in the same stitch you just did that half double crochet, we want to do a slip stitch. So we go into that same chain, yarn over, pull through the chain, and then through the loop on the hook like that. And then all we need to do is cut the yarn. You can use a pretty long end if you want to. I don't think you really need to since we have this long end. So we'll just cut it somewhat short, pull it straight through like that. And then we're going to pull this tail end right back into the same hole that you just pulled it out of. So into this hole, yarn over, and pull that chain, that knot right back into the center there. So that is lined up with our other end. And now we have a little itty bitty leaf. Now we want to go ahead and make 2 of these leaves. So I'll go ahead and make 1 more of these leaves and I'll show you how to make a stem for it all to go on. Okay, so I've made a secondary leaf and now we have 2 of these little leaves with these long ends. And now all we need to do is connect them together with the pipe cleaner and then wrap around them in a very similar way that we made our mushroom. So let's start by taking our pipe cleaner and I'm going to go up through the bottom of one of these. So right where we added that slip stitch and pulled through, we'll go up through the bottom of that. We'll go about halfway down the leaf. Down the pipe cleaner. Then we're going to take the other end here and we want to go back down through the top of the other side of the leaf, or the other leaf rather. So down through the top of this other leaf, just like that, so that they're kind of facing each other. Okay, so they're facing each other. You have the pipe cleaner about halfway down, just like this. Get both these tail ends out of the way slightly. And then once you have it halfway through, fold the pipe cleaner in half and then twist it as tight as you can all the way down to the bottom in a very similar manner as your mushroom. So we're just kind of twisting up. This is creating basically the bones of our spine. We're then going to wrap around this with our green yarn to cover it in green and make it look like the rest of the other ends. Okay. All right, so we twist it all the way down to the very end. Okay, so now you have these 2 leaves on a pipe cleaner. Honestly, it's kind of cute right now, and if I used a green pipe cleaner, it probably wouldn't need too much extra anything. But we're gonna give it a little extra. So what we need to do is we want to grab one of these tail ends, probably the longest of the tail ends, and we're going to start by wrapping straight down our piece. Actually, you know what? Yeah, no, we'll just do one at a time. We're just going to wrap all the way down till we have it as long as we want the stem to be. You know, very similar to the mushroom. Try to cover it as much as possible. We're gonna leave a little bit at the end left over. And notice how as I'm doing this, because the yarn is unwinding itself, it's covering the pipe cleaner really well. So it's covering like all of that pipe cleaner. Okay, so I want just a little bit left over, and we're gonna do the same thing where we kind of create a little bit more of a oomph at the bottom of our stem, maybe even a little bit more. And then we wanna wrap back up the stem. Now look at this. Notice how, see how I'm running out of yarn here? Don't worry about that. This is gonna be the nice thing, is that we have extra yarn to wrap up with. So we're gonna go down, almost down to the center. That's probably good. We'll leave this end loose. We're gonna take our another tail end here and begin wrapping around the pipe cleaner again, but this time we're gonna start wrapping up around the tail end that we didn't finish with because it was just a little too short. So this is the nice thing about this method, is that you have extra yarn to cover up with just in case. So we'll work our way down it like that. We'll work our way back up it. Now when I work my way back up it, I'm gonna also kind of separate where the yarn is wrapped up. And this is gonna create like a kind of a vine look up the end of our stem. You don't really need to do this. You can make it really flat if you want to, but it does add just a little extra of detail to your stem. Okay, so the last part we want to do is we want to go and double knot everything together. So we're going to go in through the top here and out through the side where this other end is. We're going to take our tail end from the last tail end that we used for winding, go into the tail end, or into the needle, and then through the side. Okay, and we're just gonna give our guy just a real good look here. Looks like this tail end could be cut. We don't need this little tail end because we wrapped around it, so it should stay together, no problem. And then we have this tail end that we just used for wrapping, and we have this other tail end here. This last tail end, we're gonna just hide on the inside. These two tail ends, we want to double knot together so nothing comes apart. So we're going to double knot these two ends. 1 and 2. Now, if you want to make sure nothing comes apart, or, you know, these tail ends, we don't have little threads, all we need to do is thread this end on a needle, and then we'll just hide both of these tail ends into the back of a few of these leaves. And we're going to do the same with all of our tail ends here. So this first one, into the back of a few stitches. You don't need a lot of stitches, just a couple. Same with this tail end. We'll go into the back of these ones here. Just a few stitches. Thread this on our needle. There we go. And of course, you could also add a little flower to the top of our sprout if you want to. To add a flower, I actually have some video tutorials for flowers, but you can find them by going to clubcrochet.com/flower. And this last tail end here, we're just going to thread that into the back of a few stitches along the inside of our last leaf. We actually didn't need this last tail end. But it's nice to have it just in case you didn't use enough yarn, you know. There we go. We'll cut that nice and short here. Throw these ends to the side, and we have this adorable little sprout. And what's cool is you can place this anywhere on your piece. I'm gonna go ahead, I'll put it off to the side, like right here on the side of it, and we'll twist it into our piece. This is very similar to the mushroom. You wanna find a stitch and then just like twist your way, place it in between two stitches, and it should just twist its way in. This one's, you know what, it's fighting us a little bit. Let's try this again. Find a different stitch. That one didn't like us. Let's go into this one right here. There we go. Twist our way in, and then we can shape our twig, or I mean our sprout, however we want. I usually like to give it kind of an S look like that. And then now we have a little tiny sprout for our rock. which I always like to use to add our little butterfly onto the top of our sprout like that. Okay, so we've made a sprout, a butterfly, a frog, a mushroom. Let's keep going. And we have one more customization option. Okay, for our next bits of customizations, we're going to learn how to add things like gems, how to change your eyelids, and how to make this cool little pickaxe, as well as a few other customization options that I've come up with while recording this video. The first one that I want to talk about is how to add small gems using just color change baubles. Now, for that, you're going to need to be doing this while you're actually crocheting it. And the first thing is that we're basically going to be doing bobble stitches in color changes, just like how we did the eyes in the main body of our rock pattern. We want to do something very similar, but for gems. So the thing you want to remember is that you want it to be pretty much the same color that you're going to be using for your large ruby or whatever you want this to be. I kind of like this to be the same color as my little side gems as well. So for this case, we're going to be using red because we're going to be making a big ruby. So you want to get your red yarn prepared. And this is basically just a bobble stitch with a color change. That's pretty much it. You just have to be very sparing with it. So here I'm going to want to put our first gem right here. I usually like to add these rock gems, or these bobble stitch gems, near another bobble stitch or bump, because it just kind of looks more natural that way. So here we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to crochet around this red yarn just to get it started. And this is just a reminder of basically how to do a bobble stitch. You can do different size bobble stitches. We talked about doing these bumps earlier on in the pet rock pattern, but just for a reminder to add a little gem, we're going to start by yarning over with the new color after we've locked it around with our last stitch. Then we'll go into our next stitch. In this case, it's going to be right here. We're going to yarn over again and pull through. Then we're going to yarn over and just pull through 2 of these stitches, 1 and 2. Now you can repeat this process anywhere between 2 to 5 times, depending on how large you want your gem to be. In this case, I kind of want it to be relatively small, so I'm going to use what I call a mini bobble. For a mini bobble, I'm going to repeat this same process 3 times. So we're going to do it 2 more, yarn over, go into the same stitch, yarn over and pull through, then yarn over and pull through 2. So that's 2 repeats. We're going to do 1 more of those, yarn over, into the same stitch, yarn over and pull through, then yarn over and pull through 2, 1 and 2. Then we can switch over to our gray yarn, yarn over, pull through all the stitches on the hook. Don't forget that you really want to crochet around this the end of this yarn for 1 single crochet before you cut it close, and you can say, boom, there we go. We've got a little gem. Now, this will come together a lot more as we go throughout this entire pattern. And I do often like to add things like little sparkles to my gems by basically embroidering on a little X or a little like cross or plus sign like this. So you can add those to these gems to make them look a little sparklier. The next method for adding gems to your rocks requires us to crochet a bit more. Now you want to add both these gems and these this next option somewhere along the height when you're adding the height of your body. The reason is because you basically want to replace just a regular single crochet with that, and you don't want it to get in the way of your increased stitches that you do along the top of our piece. So I usually like to put this when we're making the height, that is between rounds 6 and 10 or more if you want to make a taller rock. But in this case, we want to add basically little holes in our crochet. So I'm going to go ahead and get to the next placement where I want to add a hole, and I'm going to show you what we want to do there. I'm going to do it just along the back here. Now the idea here is we want to create little holes in our crochet by replacing single crochet stitches with chain stitches. This is going to allow us to fill it with any kind of treasures or gems that you want to add that just will poke through the body at the very end of our piece. Well, here's our first one right here. You can see our little hole that I've made in our last round. You can kind of see how it's made is essentially we're going to skip stitches with a chain. You also want for this method a bunch of like optional little treasures that you could fill your piece up with. For example, we could do little gold. Here's a little gold button for this hole right here. I've got another hole on the side right here that we're going to be adding another gold button, but it's a slightly smaller gold button. But I just like the idea of adding random crochet or non-crochet pieces sticking out of a rock, looking like there's treasure ready to break open. That's going to add a lot more when we add our pickaxe later on as well. Okay, so here is our next part. I'm going to go ahead and put another one of these holes right here. And this one's going to be the largest of our holes. And we're going to use that for, I think it'd be really fun to add a marble. So a marble just kind of sticking, I just want like the hint of a marble, like almost that, but maybe a little bit more. But I don't really want it to look like it's poking out. Now you can use these holes to make them look like actually marbles are like sticking out. But anyhow, this is how you do it. To make a little hole, all you need to do is choose a few stitches. We want to go anywhere between 1 to 3 stitches, and we're going to skip them and replace them with chains. To do that, we will yarn over, pull through to create a chain. So that's going to be 1, 2, or 3. Now I'm going to do a big hole and 3 chains here. This one right here is 2 chains, and this one's going to be just 1 chain. After creating your 1, 2, or 3 chains, you want to skip that same amount of single crochets. So for this case, we're going to skip 3, 1, 2, 3, and single crochet into the 4th. Here we go. All right, so that's how to get it started. Now the rest of this part is going to come when we get back around and single crochet all the way around. When we get all the way around, we're going to single crochet into that hole as many times as we made chains. Let me just get around really quick, and I'll be right back and show you how to continue on. Okay, we've come back around to where we made those chains and skips, and now what you want to do, you kind of have actually 2 options here. I like to just single crochet straight into the hole to create 1, 2, 3 single crochets to replace those chains. You can also work into the chains themselves to create those single crochets, but what I found is that kind of makes a little lip, and it kind of, I don't know, it just doesn't look as natural to me as just single crocheting straight into the hole like this. So there's 1, 2, and 3. You want to kind of separate those chains so they don't get too bulked together. But yeah, I think that kind of looks a little bit more natural to me and kind of will blend in a little bit better than just single crocheting into those chains, because that'll create a really clear place where there is a hole. All right, and then I'll just keep single crocheting around. Now I'm going to go ahead and finish up this rock really quick, or at least get to where we're going to be adding the face so I can show you another technique. And then I'll come back and show you how to add those gems after we have stuffed it up. And then I'll show you a few other techniques. Okay, I finished up our little guy. Look how cute he is. By the way, here's a good example of the difference between 8mm and 10mm for the eyes. I also did a different mouth using a different technique that I can link to down below. Okay, so the next part after sewing them closed is, now that we got these little holes everywhere, let's fill them up. So there's a few different things we can fill them up with. I've got a few different options, from little buttons. I got little gold buttons that might be kind of fun, and even a little marble. I thought this marble would be pretty cool in the big hole. So let's go ahead and start by doing that and shoving that guy in the big hole. Ooh, that's kind of cool. That'd be a cool eyeball. And then we'll do this larger golden button right here into this hole, and then a smaller golden button. Yeah, I'll do the smaller golden button in that hole. I just like the idea that they're like kind of barely sticking out and just giving you a peek of little treasures. Now, if you need to, you might want to hot glue these in to keep them more secure, because if I do squeeze it, I can get it to pop out. Wow, that was a pretty amazing pop. But that's kind of cute, I think, right now. But be very careful about that and hot glue them in if you want them to be a little bit more secure. Other ways you can add gems to your piece. We can add little what are these? Beads, by just embroidering them on. All you need to do is just thread a piece in there and then embroider it on pretty simply, and then I would just sparkle them throughout it. You could also probably use a glitter for that. Another great one is using sequins. This would be a really good addition. Very simple, just to sew it on using that little hole in the center of the sequence. But the last thing that I want to add here is I want to make a big gem that goes on their forehead. I think that would be really cute. So what we're going to do for that is we're going to need some red yarn, and we're going to actually crochet it on. So we're going to start by crocheting the gem itself, and then we're going to sew this on. This is actually the only thing that I've made that actually gets sewn onto your piece. To start, we're going to have a long end here, and we're going to start with a slip knot. Same way we started a few pieces here. Okay, and now we're going to start by chaining 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. For round 1 of the big ruby, we're going to skip the first chain and starting into the second chain, we're going to single crochet. We're going to single crochet into the next 2 chains. So we're going to start in the top of the chain this time. You don't have to work into the back chains. You can work right into the top. And we're going to do 1 single crochet there and 1 single crochet right there. Next, we're going to do 3 single crochets into the next chain right here. We're going to do 3 of them. 1 into the same stitch, 2 into the same stitch, and 3. Now that's going to naturally kind of turn your piece 180 degrees, but just in case it didn't, go ahead and turn your piece 180 degrees. Next, we're going to work into the bottom of these chains. We're going to single crochet into the first chain right here, and then we're going to do an increase into the last chain. You want to really make sure that you're under the chain itself where that last single crochet was. So we're kind of working on the opposite side in the same place where that first chain went. So right here, like that, we're just going to do 1 single crochet. And if you look at it from the other side, you can see they're actually both in the same exact stitch. Lastly, we want to do an increase into our last stitch right here to finish up round 1. So we're going to do 2 single crochets into this last chain. So there's 1 and 2. Oh, and obviously we want to also slip stitch. I forgot about that. We want to slip stitch into the first stitch that you made right here to connect everything together like that. Okay, that'll be the end of round 1. Now in round 2, we're going to work only into the back loops of your stitches, and we're going to single crochet 1 into a first stitch and then increase into the next 3 stitches in a row. So that's 1, 2, 3. We're actually going to start in the next stitch over. So we're going to skip where we slip stitched, and we're going to start right into this next stitch right here. We're going to single crochet 1 into the first. And notice how I worked only into that back loop. We want to keep that front loop revealed. We're going to do 3 increases in a row after that. So right here, we're going to do an increase. 1 and 2. And then another increase into the next stitch right here. 1 and 2. And then the third stitch will be right here. Another increase. Again, only in that back loop. We want to keep those front loops open to embroider on detail. We're going to repeat that process one more time. So 1 single crochet into the next right here. And then 3 increases in a row. Again, only in that back loop. 1, 2. Let's get a little bit more yarn. 3, 4. And then our last one, it's going to be that slip stitch that we made. We're going to do an increase into that last one right there. Okay. Now the last thing we want to do is we want to slip stitch into the front or into both loops of the first stitch that we made. So into this first stitch, we're going to just slip stitch 1 time like that to connect everything together. And you can see it's kind of a big, gigantic ruby that's just going to be sewn right onto the head right there. And we're going to add detail to the stitches here. All right, so next we want to cut our yarn. We want it to be a pretty long end to cut, by the way, because we're going to use this to not only sew it on, but we're also going to use this to embroider on detail. You could use an additional strand if you want to as well, but we'll just cut a really long end instead. And then we're going to go pull it all the way through just like that. Okay, next up we want to sew this onto position on top of the head. The first thing we want to do is thread the inside. So see how there's 2 ends? There's one really long one and then one short one. We'll thread the short one first. That's going to be the inside of it. This kind of has a specific shape to it where it's a little bit like, well, it's basically an oval, but the top of the oval right here where the end is, it's just a little bit wider, it kind of looks like. But it's not really. It just kind of gives that feeling. Because of that, we're going to have that sew onto the top of it. So it's like this. And we want this part to go straight into the center right here. So that's going to kind of help us keep our guide to where the end is. I have a feeling as I sew this on, these little buttons are probably going to pop out, but that's okay. All right, now that the first one is threaded in, we're going to keep that long end. That's going to be for sewing together. Double knotting together at the end. But now we want to thread the other end on a long needle. And this part is going to be pretty simple. We're just going to keep it into place wherever you want it, this giant ruby. And we're just going to sew this on, but only using the back loops of the edges of the ruby. So we only want to work these little back loops. So we keep these front loops open. The reason is because we're going to go around all these front loops to embroider on a more clear edge to our ruby to kind of give it like harsh edges. Here, let me show you on the finished version of the other one right here. So you can see this is what we're going to kind of form afterwards, is we're going to embroider on this edging to kind of make it look more, I don't know, like a gem, like a polished gem, I should say. So we're going to go ahead and sew this right onto the head by working into those back loops. So we're going to go into one stitch and then come out the next. So this looks like a good, well, actually this is probably a good start. And we'll go down to the next stitch right here. Actually, no, you know what, we'll keep where we were. So into this stitch, out of this one, oh, there goes one of our buttons. We'll add these back in later. We're going to pull this all the way out and then go into the back of the next stitch along. So right here, and then out of the next stitch to sew it on. This. Okay, and see, that's going to keep our front loop right here revealed for that embroidery part. And I'm just going to go ahead and keep working this around, trying to keep it as centered as possible. And I might have to end up going back and taking some stitches out because it doesn't end up looking flat. But when it comes to sewing, it's always like trial and error. Actually, I think that this stitch right here will be the next one over, so it'll connect to that one. So I'll be right back. I'm going to continue sewing this onto the head, and I'll be back in just a moment. Okay, I just finished sewing on the main part of the ruby, and the next part I want to embroider along all these edges. So we're going to finish up. I went into this first stitch, and then I came out of the same stitch as I started in right here, and I'm going to come out just from this front loop right there, like that. And that'll just help us get started. Now what we want to do is we want to go around. I actually like going around clockwise like this into the unused front loops there, all the way around the border. And this should help us make a really clean, clear border. I'm just going to keep going around of each front loop, and you'll see it just basically adds more dimension. Dimension? I don't know what the word is. Definition, that's the word I was looking for. It adds more definition to the edge of our ruby. So we're going to go around I'm going to work this around all of these unused front loops only. And when I come back, I'll show you how to add the ones along the middle, and then we'll create lines along the edges so that we connect the middle and outer edges. So I'll go ahead and continue working this border, and I'll be back in just a moment. Okay, I just finished coming out of that first same stitch right there. And you can see it's created this really clean border of our ruby. It's just really like making it very clear that it's, you know, on top of our piece. Next, we want to come back into our piece. Let's go into the next stitch, and we're going to go in. So I came like going into the side of the body, and I'm going to come out from the top of our piece, just like that. And this last part, or this next part, is we're going to do the same thing that we did in the front loops of the bottom part. We're going to do it with all these unused front loops from the top part. So we're just going to go all the way around into the unused front loops, like this. And there's less stitches this time to work around. But this is going to do the same on our top layer. Okay, and that's going to be the last stitch for the top layer, and you can see how it's made this really clear 2-layer piece right here. And the last thing we want to do is we want to connect the 4 corners of our oval so that they connect to the inside layer, and that's going to make it look more like a ruby. So we're going to take this and let's have it go out the next stitch right here, because I think that's more towards the corner. It's like right there. And we're going to go right down to the second layer down. We're going to go around into the body of it, and we're going to come out. Let's come out through the top where we want the next one. Maybe like right here. Let's see how that looks. We might want to double that up. Actually, that looks pretty good. I think it's really nice how clear it is that we're like making an edge. Yeah, I think that's nice. So now we're going to do the same over here. We're going to go into the corner, maybe right here. And let's come out through the top of where we want the next corner. Now, I didn't stuff this ruby up. I probably should have stuffed it a little bit, but that's okay. We'll do the same down here. And we might end up wanting to make our connection lines more distinct as well. Let me see. Actually, I think those look pretty cool. Okay, we're going to enter into this, and then I'm going to exit through where our other end is finally for double knotting. Let's see how that looks. Let's go ahead. We always want to tweak it. You know, it gets a little warped as we're sewing. I think that's pretty good. Yeah, I guess we could have done like a connection here and a connection there. Let's look at our previous one for reference. Oh yeah, see, I did go under the bars on the previous one. It looks pretty good. Okay, so the last thing we want to do, let's double knot these and cut close. And then I just want to add a little bit of white yarn to embroider on basically a little like cross or plus sign onto the ruby itself. And that's going to help make it look like it's kind of shining, which will be pretty nice. So we'll grab a little bit of white yarn. And we won't need very much, so we'll just about like, that's probably fine. Thread it on our needle. And I'm just going to come out in through a nearby stitch, so maybe like right here. And I'm going to come out through where I want our shine to be. Last time I put the shine on the top corner. Let's see if I can put it maybe at one like right here. I did like the top corner more though. Let's go ahead. Actually, let's exit from right on the bottom, right there. See how that looks. Okay, so the way I like to do this is I come out, I leave a little bit of an end for double knotting to, and then we want to start by making a straight line up. So let's go like to right. I basically hold the line up and then find where that stitch would be right there. And even if it's in the center of a stitch, I just kind of wiggle my crochet hook until I get it perfectly in where I want it to be. And then I want to come out through where the horizontal will be. That's going to be right about, looks like right there. So it might actually be easiest to go into the body somewhere, come out through an adjacent stitch, and that way I can kind of reorient my needle. Oops, let's get that end there. All right, let's reorient our needle here. And we're going to enter back into the same stitch we came out of and exit from, looks like right. This might be easier with the sharp needle. No, a little bit. We're close though. Yeah, like right there. That's where I wanted it. So something like that. And then we're just going to go plus. So into across from it, into the body, and then out through where our other end is for double knotting. Okay, let's see. Does that look like a little bit of a shine is our question here. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it just looks like you embroidered an X on it, but if you do it just subtly enough, it has worked out really well for me. I think that's pretty good. It kind of looks like a shine, right? Let's see on our past one. See, this one looks so shiny to me. It looks like bling. And that one looks pretty good too, actually. Yeah, sure. Let's put, maybe we put a little bit more right on the other end too. Let's try that. So we'll go in, and I'm just going to try embroidering just a little, basically like a little dot over here. Like there's 2 points that are shining. Let's see if that helps sell anything. I'll just go around this right here. And let's start by just trying to go back into the body and out through where we want and see how that looks. Ready? Does that help? Or does that hinder? I think that's pretty good. Maybe that shine should have been down there with the other one. It's not too bad. Let's call it. I like it. We're just going to double knot here. And then we'll have one more piece to add to really sell that this poor little guy has got gems in him. So the first thing is, let's add back in our big gems. So we got a marble stayed pretty easy, no problem. These ones, these don't stay too well, but that's okay. I might glue them back in using fabric glue later. But the last thing I want to do is I like to add a pickaxe to the top of the head. I just think a pickaxe looks so funny, especially like this guy. Look at that. That pickaxe is so cute. So pickaxe is going to be made kind of similarly to how we made the stems for both our sit there, good, for our other pieces. So we're just going to use a full pipe cleaner for this one. Okay, we want to start by making the general skeleton of what this pickaxe looks like. So we're going to start by, I always like to keep a little bit of an edge. So that's like my end right there. And we're going to start to make the shape of the pickaxe. So that'll be like the top of the pickaxe. We'll have it end like right here. Is that too big? Let's see. Well, that's a pretty big pickaxe. So maybe a little shorter. We'll fold back down to the center. And now we're going to create the center of the pickaxe. So we'll have this part go straight down. Make it the length of however long we want our pickaxe. Maybe about that long. So we're basically making a big T. We'll fold this part back over and then go back down to where we want the other end of the pickaxe. And then I'll just twist that part together. Okay, so now we have this like weird shaped T. Now take a needle, and in all of the edges we want to twist around to create a little sharp edge for us to work with. So we're going to go into the first of this first center right here. We're just going to twist around that, making sure there's space for our needle itself. And then we want to do the same thing down here. And actually the handle of the pickaxe might be nice to just twist that one all the way up. Just like that. Okay, so now we have this is going to keep more of a shape. And then finally, actually, let's also twist together this side. So we're basically just making a giant T now. Like that. We're keeping the end open. Now we're going to shape the top of the T into more of a circular shape like that. And now we want to add all of the yarn around the T. So we're going to, I actually like to start with, let's start with the actual metal of the pickaxe part. And we're just going to use, let's just use our regular gray for this one. I sometimes like using a shiny gray, but I think the regular gray will work. Oh, you know what? I had my shiny gray right here. So let's go ahead and use that instead. So for the shiny gray, we don't need very much of this yarn. Maybe about that much is probably fine. Cut it short. Oops, there we go. And we're just going to thread this onto our needle to get started. Now this part is like, takes a lot of practice to get this just right. But we want to thread this on a needle, and we're going to take the very tail end here. Where's the tail end? There it is. We'll start by taking this tail end, and I'm going to hold it over the long end of the pickaxe like this. Okay, and we want it to end right here at the end. So we're going to start right there. And we're going to just start winding up the blade. I'm going to call that the blade of the pickaxe. We're going to start winding around the blade of this pickaxe all the way. And we're going to cover up that other tail end as we go. We're going to try to get all the way to the other end. So just keep going around over and over and over. And don't worry too much about the middle. We're going to cover this part in the middle with brown anyhow. So we'll just keep going around. I know it looks a little messy. Once we've gone around this tail end a pretty decent amount, we can cut it nice and close. We're just keeping held everything in place too while we go. We'll just work our way all the way down. Don't worry about covering it fully, but we want to cover it mostly, you know, as much as we can, really. Let's do it this way now. And when we get to the end of this end of the pickaxe, we have this little hole at the end of our pipe cleaner because we kept that needle in there and twisted around, remember? So what we want to do is we want to enter the hole with the needle once we get to this end. And this will help us lock our yarn in place. And then we can start wrapping around it. And then we can cover the entire edge with this by doing the same thing. So we'll go in to the center a few times here. And this is going to be the exact same way we do the handle of our pickaxe as well. We're going to go into the center of the hole that we made on the bottom. But I guess we'll get there in just a moment. And because we have a lot of silver to cover, we want to try to really cover this as much as possible and make this part as thick as possible. So it's not like a sword, you know, it's a really thick. I want to try to keep this as thick of a pickaxe as we can. Sometimes I also like using buttons sewn on to the end of a toothpick. Will also make a pretty cute pickaxe or just a regular axe. Okay, and we really want to try to cover this tip as much as possible before we continue on to the blade of it. This one might be, let's go back into the center of that. Okay, I'm pretty close now. Let's do just one more there, and then I'm going to start winding my way back around. Okay, now I'm going to start winding my way back up it, and I'm going to try to cover this as much as possible as I go, and really try to keep it uniform, but really trying to create a thickness to our pickaxe, especially more in the center. So actually I might go back a few here and start to get it thicker and thicker as I get closer and closer to the center. And then once we get to the center, maybe I go back on it a little bit more. And then back around it a little bit more. We're just trying to create as thick of an end to our pickaxe as we can. And then when we come to the center, now we got to do the same thing coming back to the edge. So we're going to try to mimic it best we can as we go. All right, we're getting there. Yeah, that looks pretty good, especially seeing as that's going to be like kind of in the body of it, you know? Okay, now this is my favorite part here. Once we get to the end of where we want the pickaxe, we need to hide this end in. So what we like to do is we're going to go and hold our needle down like this way. Okay, so it's pointed downwards towards your hand, and then start winding up the end of our pickaxe, but around the needle as well. Okay, we want to do it a few times. Maybe about that much is probably good. Keep it pretty tight. Then we want to thread this back into the needle. If we can. Try to get it all in there. I just wanted to fight us. Let's try that again. There we go. And then we're just going to pull it through the end like this. And then if we pull this nice and tight, and pull this side tight, should hide that end and keep everything held in so nothing comes apart. That's pretty good. And then we just cut this nice and short. Okay. All right. Maybe not the cleanest one because I was doing it in video and got a little nervous, but you know what? It's pretty good. Next, we want to add the center of our pickaxe, the handle right there. So now we just need to give it a handle. So for our handle, we're going to use our brown yarn. And this one we actually also don't need very much, but we'll go ahead and give us maybe about that much. It's probably way more than we need, but you know, better safe than sorry. All right, we're going to thread this onto our needle. And we're going to do something very similar for the handle of this pickaxe. We'll start it the same way as we started before. Let's start by going down towards the bottom. So I'll wind up just a few times as we go towards the bottom here. We're going to go around this one a lot more this time. I'll go straight through the center just to get us started. We're going to come back down to the bottom, so don't worry about that. But now we're going to work our way. Let's start by working our way up and around the starting yarn. And this first wave going up it, you don't need to cover it too much. We're covering it pretty well, actually. But we can kind of make that even messier if we wanted to. All right, we wound this a few times. Let's keep going. Okay. And when we get to the top, this is where we want to add some embellishment. So we kind of go, I like to make a little X like that on one side, and then I'll go around it. We're going to do the same on this back. X around it like that. And then we can start working our way back down to the bottom. And this is our opportunity to really give some more thickness to the handle. We'll have another opportunity coming back up it, I suppose, as well. Okay. All right, now we're back down to the handle, to the bottom of the handle, and we want to go around this end piece a few times just to cover the edge. And I'll just go in and out of the bottom of it to cover the end of our handle as much as I can before working our way back up and then hiding our yarn in a similar manner as I hit it the first time for the edge of our pickaxe. Blade, I should say. All right, let's do one more time here. Let's go around this one more. Okay. We still have a little bit of fuzz covering, so now we can go and work our way back up our piece. Let's go ahead and straighten this a bit. Looks like it got a little crooked, so let's go ahead and give it a little bit more straightening. It's looking pretty good. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. I like it. Okay, so let's go back up the handle. And we're going to do the same thing as we did before. So we'll do a few stitches here. And now let's do our trick. So we will unthread it, take the needle. Let's actually use a smaller needle this time. It might help us out. Here, this one here is slightly smaller. So I'll hold it down like this and go around the needle 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's do 5 or 6 times. Let's do 6. It's pretty good. Make sure to pull everything really tight so it's as close to the needle as you can get it. Then we're going to thread this onto the needle. If you can. That part's pretty tricky. There we go. And we'll just pull it all the way through. And pull it nice and tight to tighten everything. And then we'll cut this end nice and short. There we go. All right, and I always like to kind of squish it, form it a bit into the shape I want it to be, since it's a pipe cleaner. Okay, and then the last thing, we just want to put this into the top of our guy. So I'm going to take this end of our pipe cleaner, and I'll just kind of wiggle our way in, like that. There we go. You know what? Let's put it actually, oh, we have a little surprise green yarn there. Let's put it actually near one of these bobble stitches. I think it'll look better, because it'll look like he's got it, there's like a reason for it to be there more than just like randomly in the head. So maybe like that, or maybe we have it go this way. No, I think I liked it the other way. Yeah, let's keep it on like that. There we go. And now we've got our cute little gem covered rock. How cute. Here's our other one. And then here's our little frog. We'll put our frog on the front of this guy right here. Keep him sitting upright a little bit better. There. Very cute, very cute. I love them. Let's show the other ones off too. So here's the other one. Oh, you know what? I want to make eyelids. You know what? I do want to show how to make eyelids. So let's go ahead and make eyelids real quick, because I totally forgot about that part. So I'll go ahead and make eyelids on our final rock real quick. Let's go ahead and pull this out and let's add eyelids. I'm gonna put that back in as our last step. But let's add little eyelids. I'm gonna use, let's use a green yarn and let's give them eyelids. Instead of doing them outwards like that, let's have them go on the bottom of them. It'll maybe make them look a little crazy, but he's already kind of got a little bit of crazy going on. So we're gonna use some green yarn for this. And this part's actually pretty easy. All you need to do is make a magic loop. Oops. Like so. And single crochet, let's see, 3 times into the magic loop. So we're going to take our yarn and single crochet 3 times into the magic loop. 1, 2, and 3. We can pull this yarn nice and tight like that. And then we're going to create a chain and cut the yarn. You want you don't need it too long. About that long is probably fine. And we want to make 2 of these, which will then sew onto the face. So let's go ahead. I'm just going to start by sewing this one right on, and then I'll make the other one afterwards. And you have 2 tail ends here, right? You want to start by threading the middle tail end on our needle and place it on the eye. The rounded part is the part that's going to stay on the eye. So it's going to be like this. So he's kind of got under eyelids like that. I think it'll make him look excited. I'm hoping. We could do over eyelids like this. Actually, over eyelids also do work, because then it's like he's got the pickaxe in him. Even just one kind of works. You know, it could just be like, he's kind of like, ouch. Or maybe he's like, ouch. Maybe you should put a thermometer in his mouth. Okay, anyhow, I'm getting distracted. Let's start by threading this first part. We want to shape it in the way we want. Let's do them angled like this. And we're going to thread this first part right into the corner of the eye where we want the top of this lid to be. So I kind of want it off center, so we're going to do it slightly off center rather than right in the center. And we're going to come out somewhere along the bottom where we can double knot later on. Then we can thread this other end on our needle. And this end is going to be for attaching the edges of our eyelids. So we're going to place it into place. So something like that. And this is going to be the corner edge. So we're going to go right into the corner of the eye. You can actually kind of go over into the other stitch as well. But we'll start by going right into the corner and then out through, if you can. Sometimes you need to find another stitch to come out of first. That should work. Out through where we want the opposite corner. So like that. Yeah, that's pretty good. We want the opposite corner right here. We're going to go around the outside stitch right here. Boop. Like that. Back into the center. And then if you don't like how this other corner is sewn on, we can go back out through the other side and kind of like add a little bit more shaping to it. But let's see how this looks first. We might actually be pleasantly surprised with how this goes. Hope we lost one of our buttons though. Okay, so let's cover that eye up so you can't see it. That's always a trick I like to use. Actually, that looks really good. Yeah, I like that a lot. He looks like he's so bummed, but like in kind of a cute way. And I really kind of do like the one. Okay, so if this pickaxe is in him, especially over on this side, that kind of looks sad, but it kind of looks cute. Right? Like that. Yeah, I kind of like that. You know, it was an accident. I kind of wanted to put it on both, but it looks good just being on one, too. I'll do another one. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and make another one of these and sew it onto the other side, and I'll be back in just a second, and we'll finish up this piece. Whew. Okay, there we go. I love it. So I finished up this other eyelid, and now he's got such a Muppet look to him, too. All right, so let's look at all of our little our little rock friends that we made, pet rocks. I love this one that we made today with these eyebrows. Very cute. I'm also very much a fan of the mushroom here. And then this guy's just a classic. And then I love our little a little fella here with a magnetic frog to go on him. Very cute. Thank you so much for crocheting this pattern along with me. I hope you enjoyed making it as much as I enjoyed designing it. And these extra additions were so much fun to design. I just kept adding new things to the pet rock that I just couldn't help. But if you have any other ideas that I didn't add in this video that you wish I did, let me know in the comments down below, and I'll make an update video if I get enough good ideas for more additions that you can add to your pet rock. If you liked it, please like down below and subscribe to the channel. Consider supporting our channel by going to clubcrochet.com, and I'll see you in the next one. Oh, and check out more Woolly Woods themed patterns at clubcrochet.com/woods. Thanks again for watching. Pasta la pizza, happy hooking, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.